All right, guys, it's 7:04 p.m. on Tuesday, January 19th. This is a meeting of the Darien Architectural Review Board. It is a special meeting because it is being done over GoTo. We have a tight agenda once again tonight, so we're going to be pretty on point about getting through each of these agendas and doing our normal ARB Zoom GoTo application process. I'll explain it before we go in. We've got 3 applicants on the agenda and then some discussion of the ARB. So some general guidelines for everyone on this call. Please go on mute the entire time you're on here. Go off mute when you're called on and asked to speak. Every time you speak, make sure you state your whole name and your relation to the application or the board or what have you. I'm going to start with an opening call of all the ARB roll members. I'm going to call you guys in order that you are going to be participating this evening. For those of you new to the ARB, the agenda will work like this. We'll call an applicant. You'll give us your presentation uninterrupted by the board members. Then we'll stop you, put you on mute. Each board member will go through, all 9 of them will go through and give comments. The comment session will be uninterrupted. And then once the last board member speaks, we'll be on final mute and we'll go back to the applicant to address any questions or changes or any issues. And then it will be followed up one last time with any remaining questions from the ARB and closure by myself. All right, the board members we have on tonight, we've got Leslie McCauley, Sherry Green, Rebecca Morrison, Allison Hughes, Marion Castell, Alex Lopatensky, Sean Brown, and David Humphrey. Welcome, guys. You are a board of experts dedicating your time. Thanks for being here. Starting off, we have ARB number 1, 2021. Cheers to you, Sean Brown, for reminding us of the new year. Allstate at 751 Boston Post Road. Who's ever speaking for Allstate, please state your name. Give us a summary of your application, who you are, what your role is in the application, what the location is, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. My name is Heather Dudko, and I'm working with Philadelphia Sign Company, the sign installer for Allstate. The site address is 757 Post Road, and Allstate is proposing to install 2 signs. They're moving into that property, and the first sign is a 6 square foot ground sign, non-illuminated. It's a sandblasted, double-faced sign, and the lettering is routed on the face of the sign. It's a double posted, non-illuminated. And the second sign is simply an hours plaque that they'll display on their front door, non-illuminated with vinyl lettering with the hours of operation and the telephone number, etc. That's about it.
Elizabeth Geiger here, Chairman. All right, Heather, thank you. Can you spell your name for us, Heather, for the record?
Sure, the last name is D-U-D-K-O.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And one clarification before I get forward. I've got, is an Allison Ball, the, you know what, I'm thinking the wrong application. It's just you presenting, Heather? There's,
yes, it is.
No, an Allison, is there an Allison Bale that's the owner?
Let me just check that. That sounds familiar.
On your
Yes,
application, I've got a property owner.
Yes, that's the property owner.
Allison Ball.
Okay, it's Liz.
Elizabeth.
Ball. Okay. Okay.
That's
All
how
right.
she signs
Thanks,
the
Heather.
authorization line. You're welcome.
Okay. All right, Liz Geiger here. Again, I'm going to remind the order for the ARB. You've got Leslie, Sherry, Rebecca, Allison, Marion, Alex, Sean, and David. I'm going to let you guys go one after another uninterrupted. Go ahead, Leslie.
Leslie McCauley, ARB. Heather, I had one question for you. Is there just one driveway going in to that site? I couldn't really tell.
It appears that way, only one driveway from the site plan, yes.
I guess I'm concerned that the line of vision, if there's someone running down the sidewalk, you might not be able to see if you're pulling out back onto the road.
Okay.
This is Liz Geiger. Heather, you can go on mute. I'm going to ask you to go on mute. We're going to run through the whole board, and you can write down your comments. And you can address them, things you don't know, we can circle back on, if you don't have answers to stuff, that is okay. We'll keep the discussion going. Just take notes and we'll go one by one. Leslie, go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
That was my only question. Thanks.
Sherry Green, ARB, board member. I have not received my packet, so I'm operating a bit in the dark. Heather, could you describe the colors that you're using on your sign? Since I don't have any papers with me. Thank you.
This guy here, we're gonna keep going. Sorry, after Sherry's Rebecca. Sherry, you got your link. I can send you this offline where your material color packets all exist. Rebecca, go ahead. Sorry, guys.
Rebecca Morrison, ARB member. I thought it looked fine. I had no comments.
Allison Hughes, ARB member. This door plaque on the door, is that in the rear of the building? If so,
This guy here, again, ARB members, I think we're having a struggle this evening. Please just ask all your questions. The applicant will write them down. They'll address them at the end. So ask all your questions all the way through. When you're done with it, say that's it for me, and we'll move on to the next ARB member. Thanks, guys.
okay, I guess that's it for me. If it were to be on the front door, I have to say I have some questions about it. On the rear door,
Marianne Costello, you're up after Allison.
I see the monument sign and I see the square sign also. Is that sign for the building side of the building? And I have a question about the sign on the door as well. Those are my two questions.
Sorry, Mary, Liz Geiger, what's your actual question about the sign on the door?
Well, the validity of it. I mean, it shouldn't be a permanent sign giving all that information, or should it be in the window as a removable sign? That has to do with legislative aspects of it, of the regulations.
Alex Lopatinsky. Sorry, Marion. Alex Lopatinsky, ARB board member. My question is about the plaque sign as well, more to just mounting height. It just based on where it's shown on the drawing, it looks like it is at belly height, not at eyesight height. So I would just question that, and it has significant amount of information that, to Marion's point, doesn't seem that it should be on a door rather than a different location. That's my comment. Thank you.
Sean Brown, it's you after Alex, and then it's David Humphrey.
I don't have any further questions after the ones that have been already asked. Thanks.
Yeah, no additional comments.
Okay, Liz Geiger, chairman here. Heather, thank you. Sorry, it always takes us a minute to kind of get the ball rolling here. So let me summarize those two comments. We need you to go through the location a little more clearly on where the monument pole sign is. And in regards to the door sign, as one member alluded to, all that copy has to be removed, just the company name and the logo. But so if you want to speak to those few points, please.
Okay, why don't we address the plaque sign first? The plaque sign is on the rear door. It's not on the front door, so it's the rear door. And it is needed to identify the actual door to go in because there are 2 doors there. So it would, that's why they placed it on the doorway. If you need to edit the information on there to be less information, that's fine. If you'd like it if you'd like it moved up a little higher to more of an eyesight, that's fine. But I think their thinking is that that's the door that they need to enter for the customer. So it should be on that door since there are 2 doors. The colors are blue and white on each sign, if that one member has not received the coloring, but blue background and white lettering on each sign. And to address the monument sign, I'm not quite sure about what the actual setback measurement is, but I do know that they have to work with the property owner there because there's some issue with an oil tank and an oil tank delivery. So they've had some discussion about where an appropriate location for that monument sign is. If that's something that you need to have a little clearer with measurements, that's something that we could provide. Because I don't have that actual information of how many feet back from this driveway or how many feet from the sidewalk.
All right, Liz Geiger here, Chairman. I'm going to summarize, unless any ARB members, anyone want to address any of those comments? Any follow-up questions there? Leslie McCullough?
Leslie McCullough, ARB member. Heather, what about if you put it on the other side of the pathway? It's just, I don't know where the oil tank is, but that might be an easy solution. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, so not on the, does everyone have this, the site sketch in their packet where it shows the placement? Yes. So you're suggesting to the left of the walkway instead of on the corner?
Yes, I don't know where the oil tank is, but that would work.
I don't either. But I do know that's a discussion that they're having because they need to place that. But okay, I can make that suggestion to the left of the pathway.
Liz Geiger here. Heather, my other question to you is, do you know the sizing of the letters and the logo on the monument side in the yard?
No, they do not have that spelled out. They only have the size of the panel, which is only 24. The panel's about 30 inches. So I do not have the actual the sizes of the lettering.
Okay. ARB members, Allison here.
I think for the application to be complete, we have to have exact location and letter size on that monument sign. And I think there are certain regulations as to where it can be placed. Am I right, Dave?
Yep, Dave Keating, zoning enforcement officer. Yeah, under the new regulations, the monument sign has to be at least on the private property. It does not have to be set back from the property line, but the regulations also talk about maintaining safe sight lines for motorists and pedestrians. So you're right, we should, I think if the concept is okay with the ARB, and they can provide details about the lettering and the logo size and provide more details about the exact location of that sign, that would be one way to go.
Okay.
Liz Geiger here. Okay, let me summarize up. Heather, we're going to issue you a favorable report. But that said, there are a lot of changes and a lot of follow-up here. I'm doing it just to keep things moving. Okay, so as part of that favorable report, let me talk about a couple good things here. We really appreciate the detailing you did give here and the level, the site plan, the level of accuracy. We really appreciate that overall site and that viewpoint, the perspective of your property. And the quality materials you chose for the monument sign. That was very nice. I know one of our members in particular will really appreciate that you put the number address on the sign as well. So go there.
Thank you.
We need specifications administratively. As part of the favorable report, please send the specifications of the letter sizing and the logo sizing. You can do that over email to Dave Keating, and he can approve that administratively. In addition, please send the exact location of the sign And if possible, one of our ARB members had a great recommendation of moving it further back on the other side of that pathway. So it's off the driveway side for pedestrian blockage. The second part of this is the plaque sign. It needs to be, all that copy on it needs to be removed and just Allstate and the logo on there, on the door.
Okay. Okay.
Per one of our members about raising it so it's eye level. I think that's a great observation. Resituating on the door a little higher.
Okay.
So if you send a revised PDF of that to Planning and Zoning Department as well, again, they can approve that all administratively for you.
I fully understand everything.
Okay. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
No problem.
Welcome to town.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank
All
you.
right.
Good night.
All the best, Heather. All right, guys. Thank you. Liz Geiger here still. All right, I think we're on a roll now. We got the gist of how this works, right? Next up, ARB number 2, 2021. This is Mathnasium. If David Genovese, if you're presenting, you can give us your name and your role in the application and all the fun details, and introduce anyone else that might be presenting with you.
Sure, thank you. No, I think I'm here solo tonight. I'm David Genovese. I'm with Baywater Properties, and I'm the property owner. Oh, hold on a second. I'm getting a note. You need accessibility. Hang on, I just have to fix. For some reason, my computer reset, and I don't know that I'll be able to share my screen unless I do something here. Did you give me control, David?
This is Fred. I did, David.
Oh, okay. Hang on one second here. I just have to go to a meeting. Uh-oh. Why is it not letting me do this?
This is Liz Geiger here. You know, worst case, if you don't have screen control, we do have good packs. You guys did print out some good sized drawings and.
Oh, wait, I think it's working, but if I can't get it in 1 second, let's move on. Yeah, for some reason, it's not letting me click on go to meeting. I don't know why. So I can try to do this without sharing my screen, and hopefully I'll do okay. So this relocation of Mathnasium, which is currently located on Corbin Drive, is a part of the Corbin project. We've been working hard over the years, as you know, you've seen many of the applications, to relocate a number of the tenants that are in the vicinity of our project or in the midst of our project. We received a zoning approval last week for special permits for Mathnasium to relocate temporarily into the space on the Post Road that was formerly occupied by Coldplay Cryotherapy. And we also received an approval for Dynamic Martial Arts, which occupies the other half of the same building that Mathnasium is in, to relocate permanently into the building on the Post Road where, on the Boston Post Road, where NOLA Physical Therapy is, and across the parking lot from Lindemood Bell. We will come to you at a future date, probably your next meeting, with a signage proposal for Dynamic Martial Arts. But the purpose of today's meeting is to talk about Mathnasium. And basically, if you go to the deck that we shared, the first page is the cover page. The second page, the location, shows where the new location is. And you can actually see, if you look at Corbin Drive behind Darien Auto Specialists, you can see where Mathnasium is in that existing building on Corbin Drive today. They're relocating into a slightly smaller space, and the game plan is to move them into the former Coldplay space, and then upon the completion of the 3 buildings along Corbin Drive as part of our phase 1, which is happening next month, we're starting construction there. We're going to propose to move Mathnasium back to Corbin Drive, sort of into the vicinity of where they are today, a little bit further down the road. The image on page 3, I guess, of the package is the existing Coldplay Cryotherapy space with the existing Coldplay awning next to Sokari. And then the next page shows you the existing and the proposed awning. So we're proposing to go from blue, which was Coldplay's color, to black, which is the corporate standard for Mathnasium. with the same style of awning for this temporary location. And then you can see the signage proposal. The corporate, this is a franchise. So this is a situation where we're dealing with, corporate standards and corporate logo design that they try to adhere to. So the technical name of the business is Mathnasium, the Math Learning Center. That's what they'd like to appear on their, building signage in black. The letter height is all detailed here. The largest letter is the A, is an A+, at 12 inches. The typical letter is 4¼ inches. And then the Math Learning Center font is at 2½ inches. There's some applied material to the windows, the A+. Again, it's similar to what they have in their current location, which I'll show you in a moment. We have the 1082 street address on the door, which I know is important. A little bit of lettering on the door to make sure people know which door to enter. You can see all of that. And then on the last page, we show the existing signage where they actually have a blade sign, Mathnasium, the Math Learning Center on the awning, and then some verbiage, a phone number, and their email address actually on the window signage. That's really it for the presentation. We have not yet worked up the detailed presentation for the permanent location, but I guess based upon our last meeting with you about Corbin District signage program generally, I mean, if there's anything that deviates from that, we would come back to the ARB. But hopefully that gives you a good flavor for the requirement. And thank you for your time. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
This guy here. Thanks, David. Always appreciate it. It's also, I really appreciate you clarifying. It was going to be a first question about that being their official name, the Math Learning Center. So you nipped that in the butt before we could jump on it. Good for you. Yeah. All right. I'm going to read you guys' order one more time. And you guys just follow each other when you're done. Leslie, Sherry, Rebecca, Allison, Marion, Alex, Sean, and David Humphrey.
Leslie McCauley, ARB member. I really liked the existing lettering that they had on their awning, and I'm curious to know why you didn't put anything on the new awning.
I think that the decision we made was to sort of follow. Let me go back to the. Let me just go back to the image. I don't know. I think we thought it was just a little bit more pronounced. And also, if you look at, let me just go to, let me just look at the other. Oh, Sakari's on the awning. Leslie, oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to answer questions now. I apologize. I don't want to get in trouble with the chairman.
I'm sorry. I was just going to cut you off. I don't mean to, Dave. It just goes a lot quicker if we go through one at a time. Otherwise, this is a long meeting.
Old habits die hard.
It's very tempting to respond. Okay. All right. Leslie, do you want to continue or are you? Okay. All right. Sherry, Rebecca, on you.
No comment. No comment.
Rebecca Morrison, ARB member. I think it looks fine, and I'm in favor of it. I think the only question I have is, I understand Leslie's point, and I can't see what the adjacent buildings are, if the logo is on the awning or if it's pin mounted above, and it would just be nice to have some consistency. That's it.
Allison Hughes, ARB member. I think it looks great. No questions.
Castell, ARB meeting. And you did say that all of the other signs are in the window are the removable ones in the rear window. I mean, and behind the window.
Alex Lopatinsky, ARB. I have no comments. Looks great.
This is Sean Brown, ARB. I'm seconding the comment about the signage from the building to the awning and making it stand the same as the rest of the building. Thanks.
David Humphrey, no additional comments. Thanks.
Liz Geiger here. All right, David, I'll let you address that. I have one comment myself though, and it's about the lettering on the windows. I think there's a 25% rule for those. It looks a little heavy here. I don't think there's there's an exact, we're not going to get too detailed of it, but I would really like to see these guys bring down this copy. It's starting to look a little kitschy, maybe is a nice way of putting it. So if there's any wiggle room there, you could have those guys draw that back a little bit. I think it's a cleaner marketing look for them. That's my last comment.
Okay. Do you want me to run through the comments? I took notes. So I hear we got two comments from people asking us to kind of think about putting the signage, the branding on the awning rather than on the building. I think if you look down all of those buildings, most of the signage like Toy Box, Egg, Rosie, Helen Ainson, I think most of them are on the building. It does go back and forth. If the commission feels like it likes the signage on the awning more, which follows Sakari, which is the next door neighbor, I think we could be fine with that. So I can present that to the tenant and come back to you. I think the most important thing was that the branding was right. Locationally, I don't think they're as fussed. And then we can punt on that issue and look at it, when we have all of the branding and all of the signage laid out on the new location, the permanent location, we can look to see what looks best and talk about it. But I'm happy to present that to the tenant and come back to you with a revised drawing that hopefully you could sign off on administratively if we can get them on board for that, because we're trying to get this going in the next month. And then I don't disagree with the chairman that it's a lot of window lettering, and we'll make sure that we do not go above the 25% limit, but I'll do my best to kind of pare it back a little bit. I agree it does look cluttered, and I do think there is some flexibility as it relates to that. So again, would it be acceptable for us to come back to you with the signage on the awning as opposed to on the building, and then a decluttering of sorts? Like, we'll pick the most important things that they want on the glass and send it to you and have you all look at that administratively by email.
Liz Geiger here. Well, let me see a raise of hands, guys. How do we feel? And this is a temporary move, and as David said, it's changes. Some signs are on the awning, some are not. Paired next to, so it's neighbor, I know it's the awning. Raise of hands, how determined are we to see a version on an awning or keep as is? Raise your hand if you'd like to see it on the awning.
Hey, this is Sean from ARB. Liz, hold on one sec. Let me see if I can pop something up on the screen.
David, I would say that as there is no consistency, I'm fine with going either direction.
Yeah, I think if you just from memory, if you go down the street, Darien Toy Box is on the building, Egg is on the building, Rosie is on the awning, Sunny is, I believe, on the awning, Morley is definitely on the building, Authentic Athlete is on the building, and Green and Tonic is set pretty far back, but that's on the building too. Shoes and More is a building. The dry cleaner is a building. See the difference there? Coco and Lala is on the building.
Yeah.
So
Can you all see? You guys see my screen?
Yeah, make sure you introduce yourself.
Oh, this is Sean, ARB. I popped up on Google Maps, and the good news is Coldplay is still in existence on the corner here in this photo, but can you all see the building?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so as David mentioned, he's got signage on the buildings here, and going down, he's got two that are on the awning here. And then when you move across the driveway, you've got a combination of Shoes and More up top and Helen Einstein, on the awning. So I think we're in a neutral zone here where, I think the logo name of Mathnasium would look very good on this white background up here. So I think we're okay with the combination of signage as David mentioned.
That actually might be, David Genevieve speaking, that actually might be the issue if I go back to the color of the logo with the black lettering, the red and black lettering, that actually answers the question. the red and the black lettering won't show up on the black awning. So we'd have to change the corporate color or change the color of the awning.
Liz Geiger here. Anyone else have further comments? I mean, I think this has been pretty compelling evidence to maybe keep it on the wall, but anyone feel differently? Anyone want to still fight for an awning? All right, Dave, I think through this, we've convinced ourselves that what they presented is the best option here. So no need to come back with a new revision, but everything else looks great. You're going to get a favorable report, but if you could somehow get them to dial back the level of copy on the windows, that would really be appreciated.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for all of your time.
Thanks, Dave. It's so good to see you. So good to talk to you.
Thank you so much. And I'll be back next week with next month with dynamic martial arts. And then you hopefully won't see me for a little while, but then I'll be back for a lot.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Have a good night. Stay safe.
All right, guys, moving on. We have 7:34. Next up is ARB number 27-2020. It's our continued conversation about BMW of Darien. We have 1 hour to address this conversation. I am again going to recuse myself from the meeting, and our even more impressive Vice Chair Dave Humphrey is going to take over and show what a better job he can do. So, Dave, it's on you. I'm going to go on mute.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Like Liz said, continuation of the BMW application, following a similar structure. We'll do about 20 minutes for BMW to present revisions to the application and explain the changes that they've made. Then we'll do about 20 minutes for board commentary, another 15 minutes or so for BMW's response to that, and then I'll recap. Just before we start, it should be noted we've received letters and communications from the Middlesex Commons Condo Association. Those are appreciated. We've read through them. Some of those items, however, are issues that relate to planning and zoning and things that they will review and determine. So with that said, Mr. Gleason, if you are going to be the one to kick it off, why don't you lead the way for BMW's presentation?
Great, thank you very much. This is our third night, and I appreciate all of you devoting all this time to this application. It's important, and we want to address your concerns as well as, to the extent we can, neighboring concerns. You can see on the screen the existing site plan, which shows our current configuration and the proposed site plan. And that would be the next one, please, Mike. Who's got control of this? Is this Fred or is it Mike?
Mike here with Claire's Construction. I do.
All right, Mike, could you switch to the next slide, please?
Slide 2.
So I'm sorry. Proposed site plan. I'm sorry. The proposed site plan shows that we've relocated, if you can highlight it, the car wash to the corner of the service lot. You see that. And all of these, the various changes we made are summarized in my letter of January 11. We've also modified the design of the car wash and added substantial landscaping, which Katie Haas will describe. But first, I want to address the condo's comments and the comments of their attorney that were submitted this afternoon. Then I'm going to, after Mike speaks, then Katie Haas will speak about landscaping. And then I'm going to ask Craig Flaherty to address the condo suggestion that there are alternatives to the rooftop parking, which we failed to consider, and his analysis of same. The comments primarily address or are concerned about the rooftop parking, its proximity, and the potential impact on the condos. We vigorously dispute any claims of adverse impact and believe the proposed plan will result in reduced noise, light impact, and visual impact to the condos. But ultimately, whether rooftop parking is allowed is a P&Z decision under Section 907 of the regulations. And that regulation requires that the P&Z find that no neighboring property will be adversely affected by the rooftop parking structure. So as a result, you should feel free to indicate any comments you have or concerns about the rooftop parking as other concerns in your report. But ultimately, that's a decision for P&Z to make. Focusing on the claims made in Jackie Kaufman's letter that was submitted this afternoon, she made 5 that we think need to be responded to. 1, that the application involves a change of use. That is not accurate. She claims that the massing is out of scale, that the rooftop uses cannot be screened from condo views, that the building materials are commercial, not residential, and that the rooftop parking will be intense with evenings, Saturdays, etc. We believe these comments are inaccurate. The application does not involve a change of use. The use is an automotive service use that has existed since the 1980s. We're asking to modify that, but the use itself remains the same. It's P&Z's jurisdiction to determine if the proposed changes in use, changes about the size of the building, proximity to the neighbors, meet the regulations. They'll make this decision after a full hearing with the neighbors having a full opportunity to present. ARB is not designed to have that sort of robust hearing.
Mr. Gleason, this is Liz Geiger here. I'm going to interrupt you here. You've done this to us before. I need to make clarity here. The ARB is very well aware of our purview and what we do. We do not need applicants coming in here and telling a board of professional civil servants what our duty is, what our duty is not. It is very clear. We need you to stick to the application and the revisions that you have made. It's all been clear about what board does what. So I appreciate you trying to justify once again positions of boards, but the ARB is very clear on our mandate. And we are board professionals, so you don't need to insinuate otherwise and that we are somehow overstepping our purview and discussing anything further. So let's see the application.
I'm not suggesting you're overstepping your purview. I'm just suggesting that the comments are not appropriate for you to respond to, okay?
You guys can stick, we will decide what we're going to reply to, Mr. Gleason, with all due respect. So if you can stick to what your job is as an applicant, which is to talk about what the revisions are made here. We've all seen the letter. Your job is not to address that letter. We know what our job is and what to address. So we'd love you just to stick to what your changes are, and we'll move from there. It's perfectly clear. I really appreciate it.
And forego my response to Jackie Kaufman's letter, which we think is has a series of inaccuracies in it. And I'd like to have Mike Kozlowski just, I will say this. We want to hear your comments on architecture, lighting, landscaping, so we can incorporate as much of that as possible in our P&Z submission. And if you have concerns about the rooftop parking, we welcome your expressing those. But at this point, I'm going to ask Mike. My cover letter summarized many of the changes. I'd like Mike to take us through the architectural changes that were made. Okay.
Thank you, Wilder. Mike Kozlowski with Claire's Construction. Thank you guys again for hearing us tonight. As Wilder said, I'll start off here with the site plan. We have relocated the car wash further down the site to the west to get it away from the sales building a little bit more, so it didn't feel on top of it and it wasn't on top of the Whole Foods parking lot. I'll move through here. You can see these are just overview shots of the bird's eye view of the site plan. We have the sales building here with the car wash moved again towards the west, and again the service building. You'll see in another slide too, but you can see them here. We have, with your suggestion from the last hearing, added solar panels. It was a great suggestion by you guys. It goes along with what BMW's long-term goals are to have renewable energy cars, battery-powered cars. So to tie those in with our rechargeable stations is going to go a long way for helping the brand. I'm not going to go through all these plans again. This is from the we've had these from the beginning. These renderings are slightly updated just to show the car wash slightly moved back from the showroom area here. Again, this is the finishes of the showroom that no one was in dispute of. Most of these are corporate mandated finishes from BMW. The car wash, we changed two things with it. We relocated the overhangs to soften the front entry where the garage doors are, the overhead doors, as well as the entry door. We also relocated the ones from the side to here just because of lot coverage issues. The top band too, just to kind of start to make a more cohesive relationship with the rest of the buildings, is the same dark gray blackish ACM panel from that we will be using at the back end here for what would be the mini service drop-off location. So we thought that with the combination with the ground face block back here that is being used in the service department with some showroom elements, it started to tie it in a little bit more, and hopefully that addressed some board members' concerns the last time. Moving on to the service floor plans. One thing as of note, and Katie could talk about, a green roof we spoke about towards the end of our last hearing. Suggestions were thrown out to possibly have a planter at this location of the parking area. Ultimately, we decided that it was not the best of use of our resources, since we are going to be adding more plantings, and Katie will be talking about that shortly. And we have talked with the neighbors and their landscaper about that as well. What we did do is up here we have a large wall that's the back part of the service, the parts department, excuse me. And we plan to have trellises back here that will have ivy that could grow up. And again, Katie could speak to that a little bit later. As mentioned earlier, we have our solar array that we feel could, the exact amount of solar panels has not yet been determined, but locating them in the south-facing direction here for optimal use. Moving on, these are two sections provided at two different locations, one through kind of where the ramp is and the other part not so, we're just a straight wall. Here, it's a couple good things to point out here. When we originally started the project, it was a screening fence. There was openings in it throughout the process. It is now a solid structural wall. There was pieces of steel in here. We have insulation running throughout the wall. And then it will be clad with that Trespa wood-like material, which again goes back to using warmer materials than what otherwise would have been suggested by BMW corporate. If they had their way, it would have been white ACM, very cold-looking materials back here. So we went with the wood look Trespa panels. It is a composite material. It is not actually wood, but it is a maintenance-free, and we think a very warm look for the exterior. Here's the updated renderings of the service building from the front. Again, solar panels here. You could see the backside of the Trespa wall here. It is an architectural feature wall. It's no longer a fence, and it is roughly 10 feet high. So it does hide a good amount of view from anywhere around the building. These are views you'll start to see in the backside here. And Katie can speak to the updated landscaping plans, but the more greenery that has been added around the back of the building, this would be from the lower corner, the Middlesex condos up here on the left. This would be kind of in between the little valley, I will say, between the Middlesex condos and our service building. And then again, from our parking deck here, you get an idea of the walls. These renderings, again, updated, similar to the last ones, just updated with more vegetation based on our landscaping plans, different views. Again, all computer generated, but give you a general idea of what we think the building, how the building will be screened by landscaping. And then additional views here. This doesn't include, we did not go and build the whole 3D site of the Middlesex condos, but from across the turning circle here, there's obviously some trees, deciduous trees in here that are currently feathered in here. But two garages from this side. Our service building is located behind this garage, behind these condos. And then these two views are kind of zoom in. This one right here between the two garages that have this built wall already that's sided with the siding. With our service department, you could barely see the screen, the architectural wall behind there. And then between the garage and the Middlesex condo over here, again, with the additional arborvitae that we will be providing and Katie will be talking about shortly. Service finishes, these are the same finishes that we've had the last time. The only comment was that we would like to see a bigger sample of the ground face block. Unfortunately, the manufacturer, Westbrook Block, that we have selected does not have any of those pictures, nor does any other similar manufacturer of this block. So these are commercial applications. It is not your normal CMU concrete looking cinder block. It does ground face. It has so it's a little bit more polished, smooth look. You'll see a little bit of the textures. We chose this particular one because it ties in with our blacks and it ties in with our wood tones within the block itself, and we think that's a nice complementary color. I'm going to move it over to Katie Haas, where she could talk about our lighting as well as the landscaping.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, everybody. My name is Katie Haas. I'm a licensed landscape architect in Connecticut, and I'm representing William Kenny Associates this evening. I won't go into too much detail on the existing lighting study because we spoke about it during our last presentation, but just to reiterate, we measured the existing foot candle levels along the property boundary, and with the exception of a few outlier measurements, most of the light comes from the eastern corner of the property closest to Whole Foods. The images shown in the existing light fixtures are currently set at an angle, causing the blobs of light that you see. This is the source of light, and it's visible from the neighboring properties. Something we didn't know was that the existing parking lot fixtures are all connected on a single photocell that turns on at dusk and off at dawn. So none of the existing fixtures have motion sensors and none of them dim. If Mike, can you go to the next slide, please? So we think our proposed lighting, plan mitigates this light disturbance. And we've made a few updates since the previous submission. After a closer look at the light levels, we reduced the number of fixtures and adjusted the types. All fixtures are full cutoff. The fixtures are proposed at or below the height of the screening wall. And because of the full cutoff nature of the proposed screening wall, there will be no light trespass at any elevation over the property boundary on the condominium property. In addition, all the light fixtures proposed to the west of the sales building will be set at 50% or less of their light fixture level outside of business hours, unless detected by motion, in which case they will turn back to their full brightness for a temporary period of time. Mike, please go to the next image. This is an image example of a full cutoff light fixture. As you can see, all of the light is shown straight down and there's no light above the fixture, just to give you an idea of the types of fixtures that we are proposing. Thank you. So I'll move on to the planting plan now. The changes proposed here include extending the proposed evergreen hedge along the northern property boundary as well as along the eastern property boundary. During our recent meeting with the neighbors and their landscape consultant, we discussed the type of screening trees for the area, and based on the shady conditions to the north of the building and underneath the existing canopy, it was determined that arborvitae were preferred for the space. We are proposing Norway spruces, but more toward the northwest of the property, just where there is a little bit more light and less canopy trees. We also increased the amount of trees proposed on the neighboring property as requested by the neighbors to connect the two existing screening hedges. And in addition to those changes, the proposed parking and street trees were substituted for trees listed on the commercial design guidelines. And all of the evergreen trees are now proposed at 20 to 22 feet height at installation. Next slide, please. You can just skip to the next one, please. So we also provided some additional sections, one showing existing conditions and another showing how the proposed service building relates to the Middlesex condo properties. Currently, the views from the neighboring property are all of the existing parking lot, cars, and light fixtures. And And based on our assumed height of the condo floor elevations, the height of the proposed screening wall and the evergreen screening hedge, our study shows there will be no visibility of cars parked on the rooftop. And I just want to show a few existing condition photos, since Mike showed some proposed, just to kind of show what the existing conditions are. So this photo is taken in front of the condos on the opposite side of the cul-de-sac, looking south toward the BMW property. As you can see in the distance, there's the two garages that Mike had spoken about earlier. And you can see in this image that there are significant deciduous trees between these views and our site, as well as a significant amount of cars. I'd like to note that this photo was taken on a Thursday afternoon, so there's not that many cars shown, or many people probably not home. Please move to the next slide. This photo was taken facing north of the condos, closest to our property. And as seen in the plan enlargement, the red line is the existing 8-foot fence. We will be, per the request of the neighbors, we'll be connecting the two screening hedges, as you see on the left and right of the photo. Please move to the next slide. Something I'd like to note, as you can see to the left of the photo, there's an existing screening hedge. Those trees are the same trees that we'll be proposing to connect the two screening hedges. And if you extend the line of that mature height across the page, you can see how much the BMW property will be screened by just the plants that are proposed on the condos property. If you go to the next slide, we also studied different ways we could potentially add screening trees to our property. And as you can see in this image, this is looking to the east, just to the east of the proposed service building at Whole Foods parking lot. Our property boundary starts at the bottom of the wall along the southern portion and goes to the north, and it goes about halfway up the riprap sloped wall. So there's really no place for us to plant trees on as close as we can to the Whole Foods parking lot. So we are proposing trees. What we are proposing is extending the green space to the west. So where it's showing as asphalt, that will be part of that will now be green space where we will be planting evergreen trees. Go to the next slide. This is a view facing the north of and to the left is the condo's garage, and to the left of the images on our property is the existing garage that will now be the proposed service building. As outlined in red on the enlargement is an 8-foot screening fence. As you can see, the deciduous trees are located mostly on the condo's property, and we will be proposing our evergreen screening hedge approximately starting at the base of the riprap wall over to the left of the page, set 3 to 4 feet above the existing grade. And on that note, I will pass it over to Craig from Redness and Mead. Craig, you're on mute. Ooh.
All right, how is that? So the purpose of my presentation this evening is really to address some specific comments in the email submitted to the ARB from the Condo Association, where they suggest that there are alternates to the proposed rooftop parking. So in response to those comments received today, we prepared this exhibit, which of course we will get into David and Fred for the record, but we felt it was helpful to go through their suggested alternates. And I guess what I would first reiterate is Katie's finding from multiple cross sections that were prepared from the condos through BMW that given the elevation of the parking and the proposed wall that is 10 feet high and screens around its entire perimeter, and the proposed landscaping beyond that, that it is not possible to see over the wall and down into the rooftop parking from the condos. So in effect, where now they will see the open parking lot, both on our property, the town parcel, and over towards the dump at 995, at the end of the day, ultimately they will see the arborvitae screening as well as the full cutoff wall that wraps the perimeter of the parking. But alternate A suggested by the condominium association was that we get rid of the rooftop parking, which allows us to get rid of the ramp, which then would allow us to shift the entire service building to the north up against the northerly setback. And in so doing, provide more space at grade in front or to the south of the building where we could get additional parking. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we would lose the 37 spaces on the roof and really only gain 7 spaces at grade in the front of the building. So we didn't see that as a viable alternative for the client who was just trying to maintain the same amount of parking on site today as they already have. Alternate, and we also looked at, could we move the building to the west or to the east and open up parking on either side here? But these dashed lines that you see in this position are the zoning setbacks. So there's really not a lot of room to move the building either east or west to gain any parking through that means. Alternate B was a suggestion that, I'm sorry, I got these out of order. That was all, I just did alternate B. Alternate A was a suggestion that we build a parking deck on the front lot south of the car wash and west of the proposed addition. Really, the first thing to say about that is that parking structure would be building coverage, and that would put us well over the building coverage allotted in the zone. So that's not really even a viable zoning feasible option. Even if we did so, we would need to knock out some of the at-grade parking to provide a ramp to get up to the top of this parking deck. We would lose a little bit of parking for columns and structure on the lower level. So we calculated we'd lose about 11 spaces down below. And because this is a very narrow area, it's not big enough to actually get double loaded parking on the rooftop. So really we only get 1 row of parking, which is about 16 spaces. So it's not zoning compliant. It comes at significant cost. And it really was only +5 spaces over the proposed plan. Again, not nearly replacing the parking proposed on the service building. I have to leave these aisles open. This is the fire ingress and egress. There's actually an agreement and easement with Whole Foods and an emergency gate here where the ladder truck comes in and makes a U-turn and goes out Whole Foods or does the opposite. So I can't push the structure that way. Likewise, we've got a zoning setback here on the south side. We can't push the structure that way. So alternate B didn't really work for us. Alternate C was mechanical lifts on the town leased parcel. So we've already tried that. So back in 2015, there was an application submitted to zoning where mechanical lifts were requested to provide parking. And after 8 months of that pending application, it was made clear that that was going nowhere and it was a dead end and ultimately withdrawn. Zoning was not willing to consider those very observable mechanical lifts, and they were worried about those proliferating in other parking lots around town. Likewise, there's a 20-foot rear yard setback that would extend from the shared property boundary between BMW and the town. So we can't put them here even if we wanted to, and we can't put them here even if we wanted to. So the area that we'd be able to place them is only a fraction of that lot. doing some back of napkin calculations based on how tightly this is packed today, we thought doing 12 lifts would give us +5 parking spaces if we did 2 levels, and +17 parking spaces if we did 3 levels. Again, we don't think that's an alternative. We don't think zoning would allow it. We think it would be very observable and conspicuous relative to what really will be the hidden parking spaces behind the parapet wall and the screening. Alternate D suggested, well, why not just put the parking on the roof in the front instead of the roof in the back? One, we're not touching the existing showroom building, and to put parking on it, you'd have to really redo the whole superstructure. So it totally changes the job. We're maintaining the outside and building of this showroom and just doing some interior remodels. The proposed addition, I guess we're building that new, so we could build that strong enough to hold cars, we suppose. But really, this building is 9 feet taller. The roof of this building is 9 feet taller than the roof where the parking is proposed in the service building. So in order to get up here, we'd need a ramp that's about 50% longer. So we'd need a 200-foot ramp to get up there versus a 130-foot ramp. So really, this whole line of cars you see down the middle here would have to go to make way for a ramp to get up to this addition. And again, this is not wide enough for a double loaded aisle. So you're really only talking 1 row of cars on a 90-foot building. So it's about 10 parking spaces. So effectively, we'd lose 16 parking spaces down the middle here and have this 200-foot ramp in order to get to 10 parking spaces up there. So we don't see alternate D as a viable alternate. The last alternate is most expensive one. They said put a roof over the entire service building parking, including the ramp. We can't get it over the ramp because, again, we'd go over building coverage. But that would be more structure, more roof. We'd have to ventilate it. We'd have to find a different spot for mechanical systems that are now screened within that parking well, maybe on top of that roof. But obviously that's not something the applicant is proposing or willing to do, when ultimately the effect is the same, to make the parking spaces invisible from the neighboring property. That's the end of my version. Let me stop my share and kick it back to you, Wilder, to finish.
David Humphrey, if I can just jump in for a second, we're going over time a little bit, so if you guys don't mind wrapping up your side of it, and then we'll jump in with our comments.
Great. Basically, we feel that our proposed lighting will significantly improve the impact, reduce the impact on the neighbors. We have submitted a traffic report indicating that there's less traffic and that there's currently about 600 trips generated on the service building site now every day, and that will be reduced by about 300 trips in the proposed development, which is going to significantly reduce the noise from cars, etc. We have engaged an expert who has a noise expert. We haven't submitted his report yet, but we do anticipate that he will say that the background noise that we have from I-95, the dump, and Whole Foods is sufficiently elevated that none of the parking, including slamming doors and alarm chirps when you park your car on the rooftop, will be perceptible to the neighbors. And in fact, with the relocation of the car wash and the 2-story service building structure blocking sound from our site, there will in fact be a reduction in perceptible noise from our site in the proposed development, that there'll be a fairly significant reduction in noise. Now, I haven't submitted those to you, but I just want you to know that for the record, because we think that the concerns of the neighbors are misplaced and based upon assumptions which are not established by fact. And okay, so at this point, we welcome any further comments.
Okay, thank you. We will. I'm going to mention 2 quick things before we run through the members of the board. Number one is many of the slides and renderings that were just presented, I don't think we have, which puts us in a difficult position, because especially considering the complexity of the project and the number of moving parts and pieces here, we cannot effectively review this first time at this presentation. So there were a number of things provided in our packet. We all looked through everything that was uploaded to the ARB site. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't recall seeing a lot of those updated renderings. It's great that you have them, but again, that's something that we're going to have to get a copy of and review in more detail than what we just did now. So I just wanted to make that comment in case any of the board members were going to mention that as well. We'll do our best to comment on what we just saw. Again, if there are things there that we're seeing for the first time. The other thing I'll mention, just the board members, if anyone visited the Middlesex Commons, feel free to share your comments and thoughts. And then Liz, if you don't mind just going through the order again to remind everybody as far as order of the members.
Liz Geiger here, Chairman. Yeah, Dave, no problem. We got Leslie, Sherry, Rebecca, Allison, Marion, Alex, Sean, and then we're following with you, David.
Great, thank you. Okay, Leslie, we'll kick it off with you.
Thanks. Leslie McCauley, ARB member. I really appreciate the fact that you have put some residential plantings at the MCC and that you moved the tree sizes to larger. However, more than half of the trees on your tree list are not on our recommended parking lot tree list. At the entrance where the street trees are, in our guidelines, it says that it's in the note section, no one species shall be planted within 2 tree pits of the same species, and that takes place on your plan. We also asked that you updated the entrance to BMW, and to the right is existing vegetation, and to the left is a couple of trees. I think we were hoping to see something more. Also curious to see if you're taking down the sign at the entrance. It's a makeshift stop sign. That's it. Thanks so much.
Sherry Green, ARB member. I applaud the changes that you have presented tonight. I agree we need more time to think this over. It's a lot that was hitting us. Certainly like the new lighting. I like the darker colors on the buildings and having them tie in together with the service building and the car wash. I also applaud the new vegetation that you are going to be considering. I just feel very strongly that the neighbors and their concerns have to be very, very strongly observed. That's it.
Rebecca Morrison, ARB member, agreed. I think that the lighting plan speaks better to the design, and I like the fact that they're on specific timers. I just go back to the plan and I look at the elevations, and I think that the ceiling height, that there's been a lot of consideration for the interior of the building and how high each of the floors is. And I think one way that wasn't brought up before of how to address the height of this is to feasibly bring down the massing of each floor. The floors seem, they have generally pretty high ceilings, and there seems to be at least one area of the showroom that's double height. So I don't know whether we could think about a different way to hopefully take down that, at least the height of it, of each floor. I also thought it was great that you brought in the idea of solar panels on the roof, and I understand the cost to feasibly, cover the roof, but at the same time, I guess I would prefer that there'd be less parking in the back, closer to the adjacent condos or housing, and use that space to take that away, feasibly put the solar panels there or put nothing there and make that a green space for them. So there was less massing back there, traffic back there. Hopefully it was something better to look at if it was to be seen, because I guess I go back to the trees and think how I'd like to know how long before they're grown to that you're seeing in the rendering, because to me, yes, they eventually will get that high, but I just can't understand when. And finally, I just feel like that roof just looks really heavy. And was there anything to address the fact that feasibly it shouldn't look just like one flat roof? Could we somehow make some sort of alternative version where there was such a strong structure back there? That's it.
Allison Hughes, ARB member. I did visit both Middlesex Common site and the BMW site. And my immediate reaction when I went into the Middlesex Common site was perhaps a roof, a pitched roof, over the parking garage would be, to me, a pretty good solution. It would look both more residential. Noticing how the Whole Foods appears from the Middlesex Commons, that's quite a pitched roof, a big, large pitched roof of asphalt shingles. And I thought it might be a good solution for the parking garage. I applaud the use of your materials elsewhere in the project. That's it.
I applaud some of the use of the materials as well. I have one comment about the arborvitae and the pine on the plans. You say, I could not find any labeling of the arborvitae except the 50 of them, but I couldn't find anything that indicated TP or whatever the signal is for the arborvitae. So I'm not quite clear where they are. I presume they're all along the service building border. And the pine was in the west corner of the service building. And that little clarity, because the arborvitae will provide a good winter landscape in terms of visual protection. And I was curious to know where they were exactly, where the 50 were. Okay, that's it for me.
Alex Lopatinsky, ARB. Thank you for diving in a little bit deeper, both on the lighting and the planting plan. It really helped understand the changes you've made. And when I look at the lighting, it sounds like there will be no light cast up. It's all going to be below any or the highest point of any open wall. So I think that really covers or gives us a good understanding of the light exposure. So thank you for that. As to the acoustics, Mr. Gleason, you mentioned that you will have an acoustician provide a noise report. It would be good to understand really kind of how the makeup of the exterior wall of the service building does provide, or the entire building itself does provide, that acoustic barrier. From the details I saw in the sets of drawings that were issued to us, it looks like a pretty hefty wall, certainly between the neighbors and the service building, but just really would like to better understand what the entire makeup does to the noise reduction that you mentioned. Another comment I saw in one of the rooftop plans for the service building, that there's a green wall proposed. I did not see it in the section that you drew through the entire building site. It would be good to understand if that proposed green wall, is that to add potential additional screening from the neighbors that could look down into the parking area? I mean, in one moment you said you will not see that parking, so want to better understand what the purpose of that green wall is. Not that I'm opposed to green wall. I think those are great. I just want to better understand the purpose of it. And then lastly, the car wash building, I thank you for pushing it back on the site so it's not as visible when you arrive, but it still looks like a car wash building to me. And I like the idea of pulling materials from the addition of the back of the mini service building to it. I think it would speak a little bit stronger in terms of design if the entire top band was black and you didn't start breaking it up into different colors. It's a small building. You don't want to bring attention to it. So my recommendation would be to limit the number of changes of materials on there. Those are my comments. Thank you.
This is David Humphrey. Sean, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Doesn't look like you're on mute, but we can't hear you. No, still can't hear you. I'll jump ahead of you, make some of my comments. You can try to get that audio sorted out. We'll circle back to you in a minute. So I'll jump in, and then we'll come back to Sean Brown. As some others have stated, I appreciate some of the changes. The proposed lighting looks to be an improvement. One of the things I'll mention towards the end here is a couple of the items that weren't provided that we asked for previously. One of those was a night rendering. I know you provided that shot of what one of those fixtures look like, but I think because that's such an important part of this proposal, I don't see anything unreasonable about requesting some sort of rendering at night to show the fact that even from above, those fixtures won't have any impact on the surrounding area. But from that shot that was provided, looks like it's a good solution. Also appreciate the revised wall of the service building. It's more of a structural wall with insulation, a bit of soundproofing in lieu of the fencing that was there previously. Some of my other comments, I didn't see a lighting schedule. I know that you addressed that, but if you don't mind just confirming that you had said that none of the lights were on sensors, which is good. But if you just don't mind, again, recapping, if all of the lights, at least on the rooftop parking, are going to act the same way, what that will look like. I also believe that you mentioned there was no impact on the neighboring property. I looked at that revised drawing for the foot candle values, which we had asked for previously. So again, if you can just confirm that those values are accurate for the adjacent property. However, please also comment whether that takes into account vehicle lighting. Vehicles are going to be going up that ramp, driving into the parking lot, driving out of the parking lot as they're facing perpendicular to the Middlesex Commons. So if you can just make sure that that is included in those calculations. Leslie touched on most of the landscaping, where our recommendations, picking from the Darien tree list, not many of those were made. I appreciate a couple of the other sections that were provided. but one of the ones that we were looking for was parallel to the north property line in between the service building and the condos. I believe there's a difference in the grade there, and therefore, you know, a 20-foot tree in one spot is not going to have the same impact as a 20-foot tree in another spot if it's 5 feet lower. So if you're able to cut that section, again, if there's no change in grade, if, you know, whatever improvements you're making, it's going to remain relatively flat. But I thought, looking at one of the site plans previously, that there was a change in the grade from one end of the building to the other. Going on to architectural, appreciate you looking for the ground face block photo. The photo that you did provide, that's something that we'll look at a little bit more closely when we actually get a copy of that. A few people have spoken about the green wall and needing additional information there. You know, either elevation, rendering. I believe you said it was going to be a trellis structure where plants could grow. So that's obviously different than it being green from day one. So if we can get a little bit more information there. Either way, although it's 50 feet long, you know, my opinion, I don't know if it has enough of an impact, being that it's only taking up, you know, one portion of the length of the building. Maybe you can comment as to why. Well, I guess it was probably an acoustical issue, not being able to have that green wall adjacent to where the HVAC equipment is. Speaking on the HVAC equipment, that looks slightly different. We didn't touch on this last time, but if you can provide the specs for that equipment, just so we know, you know, the actual size, height, to make sure that, you know, it truly won't be visible behind that screen wall. I wanted to mention one comment on the discussion of the zoning. I appreciate the background as to how you looked at other options for layout. I don't think it's unreasonable, though, to think that you may be able to receive a zoning variance for something like setbacks or a raised parking deck if it meant that you wouldn't have to have the rooftop parking. So just something else to think about there. And then also, lastly, that sound study would be helpful to have once you have it. So those are my comments. Sean, are you up and running again?
Oh, this is Sean. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's good to go last because everybody else made all the good comments. But one of the things I picked up on Craig's site plan, the zoning site plan that he referred to earlier, was in the front parking lot right in front of the main showroom building. There's a comment about existing sign to be upgraded. And I would hope that that sign comes back to the ARB to be reviewed when it is determined what it will be. And the only comment I have for that sign is that either the number of the address be put on that sign or that it be added to the front glass of the front doors of the main showroom building. The address number, I mean. And that's my only comment after everybody else has made theirs. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Sean. So we'll pass it back to BMW to respond to the board members' comments.
Thank you, David. Let me just see. Mike, you made notes about what you're in terms of.
Yeah, I can run through.
And run through those. And then Katie, why don't you do the landscaping lighting questions, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Yep, Mike Kozlowski, Claire's Construction for BMW of Darien. Again, thank you guys again for hearing our presentation, and I appreciate all your comments. I'll try to run through these quickly. The first couple of things from Leslie, landscaping, that I'll let Katie address those. I don't think you know. There's a couple things about the green wall, the trellis wall. You know, one comment was that it might be a little confusing. Can you see it? Can you not? The answer is no, and I think Katie's section does a really good job at showing that. I think what we wanted to do was to hear what you guys were saying, and to go along with what everyone is trying to do, not only in Darien but elsewhere with the green energy and just bringing greener roofs to places. So it was really just to bring in some more greenery to the parking area. That being said, as the section shows, and it will not be visible from the neighbors next door. It was more just to bring some more greenery to the project. To bring down the massing of the floor, of the showroom area, we are not touching that. I know you asked about the 2-story showroom. That is staying as is. We're modifying a couple walls in the showroom area, but we're not redoing the whole front area, so I can appreciate that. As far as the height of the service roof and where the parking sits, the height underneath is required for what the lifts we're doing, and how much clear height they need when a car goes up, so they're able to service it. So that's kind of where that height comes from. Again, the pitched roof idea that I believe Allison had mentioned, similar to looking at the Whole Foods area. Off the top of my head, I just know that it would go against the height restrictions that we have in the area. We would not be able to accommodate that. That would be a variance issue. So I don't know how we could accomplish that, but it is appreciated, the comment. Who's the screen wall screen? As far as the car wash, looking like a car wash, I can appreciate that comment. It does look like a car wash. I do like the comment about making the top part all black just to kind of blend it in, not draw as much attention. So we will revisit that. Structural acoustics of the wall, the amount of insulation that's in the wall is according to code for R21 in the walls, and our roof has R49. So any noise from underneath the service department is going to be mitigated, but I'm not going to speak to what our acoustics will do. I'll let the acoustics report do that. As far as a night rendering goes, we went back and forth as a group on what to do with that, and I apologize I didn't address that in our presentation. It is our belief that with the photometrics showing that there is zero light at the property line, and then to effectively show a rendering, a lot of night renderings that you see of other architectural projects are frankly artificially enhanced, so it looks like a nice bright open area. We felt that once you did a night rendering of our facility here, it really would not show much, so we did not feel the need to do so. And to go along with the last thing here, the specs on the equipment, the HVAC equipment, we can certainly get you over what those are. Those are also included in the acoustics report that we have given to our acoustical engineer. So if I'm going to read through again, I'm going to let Katie go, and if there was another one that I missed, I apologize, but I was just trying to read these notes quickly as we went through. So Katie, go ahead.
Hi, Katie Haast from William Kenny Associates. To reiterate what Mike said, thank you to everyone for your review and your helpful comments and feedback to our project. I'll try to quickly go through the landscape and lighting comments and try to address as many of them as I can. Starting with Leslie, your question regarding the entrance where street trees, there's no one species shall be planted within one tree pit. Along Ledge Road, we are proposing 3 shade trees, and they're small shade trees based off of the Darien design guidelines, and there are 2 different types of trees proposed there for the three trees. The rest of the landscaping in the front, we are not touching because we're not doing any work in that area. We're doing a little bit of work around the man-made stormwater wetland, part of the conservation and wetlands approval for the project. We're doing some mitigation work, cleaning out invasives. So these trees were part of a proposal for that Ledge Road, the area along Ledge Road. And then within the parking lot, the trees that surround the parking lot, those we've proposed those to all be compliant with the Darien design guidelines. And we are proposing one honey locust and then one little leaf linden next to each other. So neither trees through the parking lot are two next to each other in the same tree pit. Along our eastern and northern property boundaries, we are proposing the arborvitae trees, which I believe that is to your comment that more than half of our proposed trees are not on the Darien list. That is because they are the arborvitae, and as I had mentioned in my presentation, we spoke and met with the neighbors, and it was discussed that it would be preferred to have arborvitae trees just due to the shade and the growth rate and the density of those trees versus the Norway spruce. We did incorporate some Norway spruce to the northwest of the service building to accommodate where it is a little bit more sunnier, to accommodate some of the street tree or the trees. Also, the arborvitae trees are away from the parking lots, and they're just for screening purposes between the neighboring property and our property. Going through, I don't have any comment regarding the sign at the front of the entrance. Maybe we can get information on that to you.
I apologize, I did forget that one. All signage is going to, as we stated in previous meetings, Mike Kozlowski again with Claire's Construction, would be a separate ARB hearing when we move forward with the BMW corporate has their sign image that they would want to incorporate, and that would be a separate application.
Marion, to answer your question about where the arborvitae and the spruce are located on the site, the arborvitae starts, if you're looking at the service building to the right, which is the east of the service building, the arborvitae starts along the eastern property boundary and then goes along the northern property boundary to the end of the ramp. And then the Norway spruce start at the end of the ramp to the west. We also are proposing, we call out 8 arborvitae on the Middlesex Condos property between the 2 existing hedges that they have.
Okay, thank you. David Humphrey here. Does anybody else from BMW need to address?
I would like to just add, we'll be happy to provide you with copies of the submission that we made, the presentation materials. Several of them were generated this afternoon in response to concerns expressed by the neighbors. We will file with the Planning and Zoning Commission the noise acousticians report, and we'll be happy to provide you with a copy of that. And we're happy to provide you with a copy of the traffic report if you feel that will be of assistance.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone, now that you guys have responded, appreciate aggregating lots of different comments and doing your best to provide your feedback after that? Does anyone from our board have any quick follow-ups? We're getting up to an hour here, but just want to give you that opportunity if anyone has an additional thought after hearing the feedback.
David, could I add one more comment? Variances for things like building height, setbacks, and things like that are highly unlikely to be granted. The Supreme Court case law on that has made it so that you must be denied any reasonable use of your property if you don't get the variance. That's like it prevents an unconstitutional taking. And while years ago we could get them because it made sense, and if neighbors came along with it, that's not an avenue that anyone in the planning and zoning staff would recommend we pursue.
Okay, fair enough. I'll just make one follow-up comment that I should have mentioned before. I'm just interested to hear, since you are proposing that the green roof, or the green wall won't actually be seen, I'm just wondering, while I appreciate the revised wall at the north facade, why that wasn't set back slightly to allow an area for either planting or a green wall there, which is a wall that will be seen by the neighboring community.
Mike Kozlowski here with Claire's Construction. In our meetings leading up till tonight, we discussed that from your comments, and we thought that the vegetation that was provided in our new landscaping plan essentially blocked that. And then the structural adjustments that would need to be made for that area and to the building for the continuous wall that we have now, it didn't seem to make feasible sense.
In fact, it may not be useful to keep that proposed green wall because we don't think it provides any effective screening because it's already screened with the vegetation and the structural wall that we're proposing. The neighbors' views they're not going to look at that green wall. So it was proposed initially, and then upon further review, it doesn't make sense in my mind.
Okay. David Humphrey, ARB. We're hitting the hour mark, I think, so I'll try to recap here so that we can all move on. So I think what we'll do, there's still a few items that are outstanding for us, and still a few items such as the landscaping where we're still recommending things like following the Darien tree list, but we'll put together our notes, a letter for you. I'd like to give the ARB members an opportunity just to look through that again to make sure that they're comfortable with everything that is there and anything additional that we're looking for. And then, probably most importantly, after seeing what you presented tonight, again, is to get a copy of what you present so that we can have more time to go through that. It looks like you have some, important details to share, like, the perspectives that you put together. I assume those, I think they do include your latest proposed planting plans, but that's obviously a big part of this. So we'll take a look at that. And if there's anything that you can think of to add on top of what's there, just to make it as clear as possible that, something like a tree height, here's what it is on day one, and here's what it is, 5 years from now. We all know that trees grow, but the reason why we're here is to help ensure that what's built on day one is sufficient in its design to fit in with the surrounding community. So that's what we kind of have to plan for. So I think I'll leave it with that. Like I said, we will provide you a letter with our notes from tonight and the items that we're looking for.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'll turn it back to you.
Liz Geiger here. Good job, Dave. Way to keep that on point. I think you guys got through that just over and out. That's really great. So we can follow up on that. When they get those new materials in, I will work with Tamara to make sure they're circulated around you guys. And we could do, I'll talk to you, Dave, on how you want to handle that of getting comments or with Dave Keating. But we'll just make sure that any additional materials get out to you guys via Tamara. Moving on here. We have the last thing is a review of the ARB application forms. Did you guys all get a chance to look in your packets of the 2 new applications that I've drafted up? As you're looking at that, the background to this, the ARB application form that we've used for the last, I don't know, 10 years, who knows? I don't know when this thing was. It's pretty outdated. And a lot of the stuff on it, like it's not really applicable to what we need to see and what helps us get through an application. So I drafted up 2 attempts at redoing this, and I kind of wanted you guys' thoughts on it. Like, is what I put on here relevant? Is it even irrelevant? Do we need more information? Like, what do we look for when you see an application? What are the things you guys want to see that make this clear as day, that we can go boom, 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 boom. This is what we need. And as part of this too, I want to make this easier for Dave Keating in the Planning and Zoning Office. So when they get applications in, they say, okay, did the applicant check this, check this, check this? Do we have everything we need? Okay, we do. Got it. Pass on the ARB. If it's not, they can go back to the applicant and say, this is not going on the agenda. We're missing this. So that's kind of the goal here, just to make this pretty streamlined and simple.
This is Sean. Hey, Liz, I got a quick comment. It came up tonight on Dave Genovese's application. What is the company name? And that should be on the application so that we don't, when we ask the question, you know, how many words are in the name and what are we looking for? I think we ought to get the real company name or the DBA. And maybe that should be on the application up front so they have to fill it out. And we can compare it to the application, I mean, the signage later.
Liz Geiger, I like that, Sean. Did you see, I did put that on here under applicant information. The first thing's name, and then I put company relationship, but you think we need to spell out more specifically, like?
Ask them for the legal name, you know, where it's like Sean S. Brown, Inc., you know, because, you know, I'm still questioning whether, you know, the math foundation name is really the name of the business, or is it mathematics? You know what I mean? I understand David said it was, but I'm still questioning whether that's the legal name all the way spelled out with a comma Inc. on the end of it.
Right. I love that. Okay, that's a great call. What else? I mean, like, Alex, Rebecca, I mean, you guys are, and even Leslie, you guys haven't seen these applications that long. Like, do you look at these and are like?
Liz, at the same time, I mean, and Alex can comment on that too, but if you are a large company, a lot of time you have a signage package already in place, and you could just have a line item there and says, does your company have a like a signage package? If so, yes, please submit with the application, because that will tell us a lot.
Yeah.
What the font colors are, what the, like, is it usually pin mounted? What's the material? So that we can then look at the their signage package, their corporate logo package, and see how it differs from what's being submitted.
Rebecca, this is Alex. I agree with you 100%. I think for me, when I get these packets, I go straight to the drawings. I look at that first, and then I compare it to what's on the written form. I know that doesn't make Dave's job easier, but you know, I look for construction information. I look for sizes, dimensions, mounting heights, lighting, things like that. Even like, you know, there's the signs, awnings, and lights, you know, maybe want even specifications.
So that, I mean, that's a good point, Liz Geiger. This is a good, that point. At the end of the application, it says additional application materials required. Well, we're actually putting together a full list of things you need to include and attach to your application to make it complete. Like, are we missing stuff from there? Is the language there clear enough? Does it need to be revised? Like, I don't know how, you know, in some way, when you say something official, like, I don't know, like landscape plans, I don't know if that needs to be more clarified further. Architectural drawings, like how broad is that statement? How granular do I need to get those descriptions? I put 2 sets of those. There's different ones for a building facade plan that I put there, and one for a signage plan. I mean, look at it now. If you guys don't have full answers now, I'd love you to give this some time, because we're going to revise this, and this is going to be our new Bible, and it's going to make our jobs easier. It's going to make the job easier for the applicant. So there's not this back and forth.
Liz, this is Alex Lopatinsky. I would like to take the time to go through this, you know, a little bit more deep detail. I wasn't quite sure what this packet edition was. So now that I have the background, I can certainly add more info.
I would love that.
I'm going to weigh in here too, Sherry Green. I'm looking at it on my phone, and I'd like to take more time to look at it. It seems very much improved and lots of details, but I need to look at it a little bit more too.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, I love you guys. It's kind of like a rudimentary task. It's a little annoying, but I think it's going to save us a lot of time when we actually do sit down and get these applications. So you can take the time, get a glass of wine, and go through it, I would love it. Grab a cookie. Okay. As part of that process too, this has come up in the last couple times. We've seen some bigger applications in the last couple weeks and some stuff that's been having to come again and again. This has happened in the last few years, and I feel like I have actually done not the most stellar job in giving you guys direction on where I leave applications and how I handle that. When I first joined the board, we were in an area where we gave approved or unapproved applications. And that was changed over time because it was confusing to applicants and it made them think they had got through planning and zoning. So we kind of restructured that to a very soft phrase of favorable and unfavorable. And since we've got that mandate, I have tried to work really hard to make every time we finish an application, that I give one of those reports. And I don't leave it to be continued. I know tonight, let's ignore BMW tonight. But I don't continue applications because we're not a hearing like planning and zoning where we hear multiple people coming in, outside public perspective, and we need time to go over new paperwork. There's legal issues. We're an advisory board, and our job is to quickly advise, move things through, and quickly advise planning and zoning and ZBA on what our thoughts are. And it's a quick advisory topic. They need to know, is it favorable or unfavorable? If it's one or the other, there's a full letter that gives my bullet points on why it's favorable or why it's not. And we want to work with applicants. We want them to be successful. So majority of the time we say favorable, we say, but you have to do X, Y, Z, which was actually the example tonight, the first applicant. They had a lot of changes, but to keep moving past them on. But on some cases like 7-Eleven, that's an example where that was unfavorable. And I specifically wrote to them unfavorable. And I think it was probably contentious, but it was important because a lot of applications we don't see again. 7-Eleven took their report, their application, and moved on to planning and zoning, which is planning, zoning, ZBA. I don't know if we're going to see them again. So I think it's really important. The way I would like to run this board, the way I only know how to do it is to be clear with planning to our larger parent boards and say, the application as it stands now, as an example for 7-Eleven, it is unfavorable in our eyes. It's unfavorable because of X, Y, Z. And we'd like to see them back. And when we do, we'll let you know. Here's our next report. So that's how I've been running things. And I've done actually a poor job in clearly stating that, I think, at the end of meetings where I've said, I don't go to say this is favorable, unfavorable. So I'm going to do a better job at doing that for you guys. And I'm also going to start including my letters in your packets. Because a lot of times I'll hang up with you guys, we'll have these calls, and you guys later will say, Liz, what happened with this? Where are we on this? And again, that's on me. I don't do a good job in letting you guys know, not only is this report favorable or not, this is where it stands. So I will do better. Do you guys have any questions about that? Or do you think that will maybe help clarify our process? All right, no comments? All right, we're done. Okay.
Liz, I just want, Alex Lopatinsky, I appreciate you sharing the letters with us. I think unless they're public somewhere on the domain, the town's domain, I think that would help just to refresh my memory of where we landed. Thank you.
Right, and then you can see on a lot of them, when it is unfavorable, you could then see what our changes were and what we're expecting them to come back with.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, were you gonna say anything? All right. All right.
I think everybody should have a specialty on the board. Like I like my address numbers. Alex is going to get the lighting. Leslie gets the landscaping. David's the vice chair. He just gets to sit back and laugh.
This is really good. Are you going to make a motion for this? Because I'm going to second that.
Okay, motion made.
All right, guys. Last agenda item: approval of minutes from December 15th. All approved? Hands
Approved.
raised?
All approved.
Fantastic. Okay, I sent out you guys. Yeah. Yes.
Can we go back to the previous point, which is what our role is in some of these applications as with the BMW. It's total push-pull with me because I know what our role is to approve the aesthetics. What actually are noise considerations, lighting considerations, those things truly part of the aesthetics, or that should that be something we should be totally not considering, being that that is part of the territory of P and Z?
Well, those are materials. Part of our aesthetics is reviewing materials, and consideration of sound materials or not is absolutely part of that.
Also on how they're utilized and the effect of them. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'll give you one more example. This is Sean. When we talked a handful of years ago, if you recall, when one of the bank branches was redoing or building a new building, I can't remember, which one it is, but they light from the inside. So their logo's on the very back wall, the inside of the building. It's all full height glass on the front. And, at night you got these bright LED lights that, bring it all the way out to the street. And I think that's an aesthetic that we have to discuss, because we're very careful about what the exterior of the building is, but when the inside protrudes to the outside, I think we have to have a say in that and make a recommendation one way or the other. That's just my opinion.
I think that Marion Castell, I think that the aesthetics involve landscaping and lighting. That's all part of it. They can tell you I believe we should keep that under our wing. And I think it's a very good idea, Liz, to put your letters into the packet so we can see what we said and what you asked and what you analyzed from the prior meeting.
And I'd like to add one more thing, Alex Lopatinsky. I think when we're talking about acoustics or architecture and design, acoustics is absolutely very critical piece to it. And if an entire building has been designed to respond to an aesthetic we're talking about that claims to have noise reduction properties, I think that's a valid question to ask to understand how that does it. I mean, why else design the building in the BMW example with solid walls? I mean, why go through all that effort and respond to our comments? So, I mean, I get that that's a P&Z thing, but it also has, from an architectural standpoint, impact, because you could just have thin screens instead of solid walls, and that solves for a different problem.
I'll make just one comment about the including your letters. Sorry, David Humphrey. In having to dive a little deeper for this one the past couple months, I think one thing you'll find that's helpful there, that Liz always kind of goes through, but until you actually see it on paper, I don't think you notice it as closely, and that is for applications where we're seeing it for a second time. What did we ask for them? What did we ask for last time, and what are they giving us this time? I mean, that was one of the things I did, before this meeting, was to look at what did we ask for, what did we get, and where are the missing pieces? Because if you don't see that, then we could ask for something, they don't give it to us, and we don't notice it until we see that. So Liz is obviously looking at that, but seeing those letters will help us be a backup there as well.
Liz, I had a question. What happens if, you and I talked about this the other day, if we continue to receive applications and they're just, let's say they're putting birches throughout their entire property, which are not on our list at all, does the application still go through even though it doesn't meet any of our guidelines?
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to submit their version of a complete, Liz Geiger here, if their version of a complete application, if they want to choose, let's say, yeah, urchins all over their thing, and they're saying we're sticking to it and we have a reason for it, then we hear them. And it's advised, and Dave Keaton does a great job doing this. He says it's advised to go with the commercial guidelines. We have materials for you to look at. We've gone through this process. You should know what to expect. He does guide these applicants, but if they get all the materials in and have all the measurements and the pages and papers, then yeah, we hear them. But I am going to get more strict about dismissing applications that aren't complete. Because you guys are all professionals. You guys are dedicating your time. I don't need to waste your time doing that. It's inconsiderate. And so, yeah. Did that answer that, Leslie?
Liz McCauley, ARB member. Liz, thanks for all that you do.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of tell after my little outbreak tonight that I will not hesitate at this point to throw out applications or respond to anyone who seems to want to tell us how to do our job when we are all civil professional servants here. So that was a long history that maybe came to overflow tonight, but I appreciate your ongoing support. All right, if you guys ever have more thoughts about how to streamline things and keep us more effective, I really appreciate it. You guys don't know this, by the way, but I speak on the side regularly to the chairs of the ZBA and the P&Z and their different board members. And they have such respect for you guys and what you are doing. And it's not me, I just shape up the dialogue, but it's because you guys are all professionals in your own capacity. And each of you guys do this, like, you know, Allison Hughes has been in here for, for 30 years. She's been on this board. She knows more about this town and this history and has that weigh in. I mean, I could go into each of you guys and give why you all are experts, but you all are beyond experts. It's noted. We speak about you individually when I talk to these different boards. So our opinion, like going back to Allison's question, that you worry about what we should weigh in and what we shouldn't. Our opinion is extremely valued, and month over month, it becomes more and more valued by these boards. They look to us to be the experts. They don't want to be getting in the weeds of the lighting and the landscaping and the design and the sound materials. They count on us to give them clear feedback that they rely on because they know that we've assembled this expert panel. So I appreciate that. And you guys, I don't know, I think it's really being, our board's value is really being heard and picked up in town. So I hope you guys, I don't know if you guys see that or know that, but it's important I share that with you because I do hear it from the outside.
That's what's
all right.
Oh, Liz, I want to say congratulations for talking to them as much as you do. That is what also brings respect up for this committee. It's your communication.
I got some time. Yeah, okay. So the last thing, approval of minutes. Last month's packet, we sent out all the new minute schedule for this month on Who's Up. Alex took minutes tonight. She stepped in last minute for Dave Humphrey, who's been going way beyond. Next month, I think Dave is taking Alex's spot. If you guys have questions, let me know. I usually don't send minutes to you guys. I expect to get them, put it in your calendar, and that's that. But if you didn't get it, let me know. I can email you a copy. I don't know if she heard you, Dave, but Alex, Dave said thank you.
Oh, sorry, I did not hear you. There was a delay. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, no worries. It's Alex Lopatinsky. Real quick, Liz, you mentioned that the schedule was sent in the packet from last month. Okay. Mine came like 2 weeks late.
The schedule was in the packet last month. Right,
So
right. That's right.
I just packed it up and okay, I'll look for it. I'll find it.
Okay. I can email to you guys. I'm always happy to email you that, our minutes template, whatever. I have all that stuff accessible. So just shoot me a line if you ever need that. And if you need someone to substitute minutes for you, it's on you guys to find someone to sub, not me. I want no part. Okay. On that note, approval of minutes from December. Oh, everyone approved. That's good. 9:02 p.m. Thanks, guys. Fred, you can take us off recording. That concludes our meeting.